And in his books, every now and then they'll mention how they had some real special roping that needed done. Some old cow that was just a real bear, and they'd go find Manuel or Juan or Pedro, and he could handle it. Well, then they'd have some horse that was a real outlaw. They'd turn it over to one of the Mexican cowboys for a little while, and he'd take the edge off of it. And then later, you'd see mention of the vicious Spanish spade bits, the ugly spade bits, and the huge, ugly spurs and everything. And you know, something didn't make sense to me. Nobody spends 4 to 5 years training a horse and then abuses it. No, that's just not human nature. It just isn't. And these big old spurs, why were they so big? All right? With modern spurs, the little tiny spurs, it's a whole thing. It's this business of surface area. I'm an engineer by trade. A big rowel has more surface area than a little tiny rowel. It's like the difference between trying to push a hypodermic needle in your arm or a pencil in your arm. The mass. Now, spurs are misunderstood. They were never meant for kicking a horse. Never. In fact, in the beginning, they weren't even meant to be used on horses. If you look at the old woodcuts of the knights in armor, they'll have spurs with shanks on them that long, pointed. Well, that's not meant for a horse. That was a military weapon. If you were going to drag a mounted man off of his horse, a man with weapons, how are you going to do it? You're not going to come up from the front. You're going to come up behind and grab him, and he's going to go right there. That was the original intent of spurs. Well, then they found out that they could use those spurs to cue their horses. Now, if I use the calf of my leg against his side, I just move my leg this way, he'll move. But if I touch him with a spur, it gets real quick. I don't have to kick him. I don't have to push it. In fact, if I kick him with these spurs, I'd be eating dirt so fast you wouldn't believe it. He'd jump right out from under me. And a good horse will. So spurs are misunderstood. So claiming that the Spanish spurs were mean and cruel is wrong. They didn't understand them and know how to use them. And the same thing with the bridle bit. Now, here, come here, get around here. I'm going to pull this bridle out. Any of you people here familiar with horse bridles? All right. I'm going to warn you. I don't want you to go into cardiac arrest here, okay? I've had people almost do that. Look at that thing. People say, well, my God, that's vicious. Well, now, wait a minute. There's a little loop of string holding the reins onto those chains. Just a little loop of string. What they don't understand is the principle of this bit. On a modern bit, this is the working surface, right here. On this bit, this is the working surface. Now, how much clearance do you think there is between his tongue and the roof of his mouth? None. Just like yours. Your tongue fills your mouth. This lays right on his tongue, right against the hard palate. If I even scrape my fingers on these reins, he can feel it. All he has to do is know what it means. Now, he spent 2 years with no bit whatsoever in the hakima, or as the cowboy said, hackamore, learn to respond to my body and my legs and a touch on a rein. And then he spent months in both the hackamore and the bit, and when everything was going well, you ride on the bit. But if I had to take him up short a little or discipline him, I did it on the hackamore. You never damage the mouth. Never. That's the way they're to be used. And that's what the cowboy misunderstood. Because he assumed, like most people today, that the harder you pull, the slower they go. And that's not true. Now, if this thing ever caused him a lot of trouble, you'd have trouble getting it in his mouth. Come on. Put it wide. Now put your head down so I can put it on. Yeah. See, now, that definitely is not an abused horse. He's definitely not afraid of that bit. All right. So now, how did they go about teaching a horse to respond to all of these different things? Well, there is a formula. It's called body, leg, rein. Body, leg, rein. My body is a preparatory command. And then either my leg or the rein is the command of execution. Just like in the military, marching. Forward, march. About, face. Column, left. There's a preparatory command and a command of execution. So I'm giving him a heads up on what I'm going to ask. If I want to go backwards, I just simply shift my weight that much, squeeze my legs a little, and we back up. This is the Spanish military style of training. And it was one of the biggest advantages I see to it is that the horse is allowed to maintain every bit of his natural spirit and character. He can still be whatever nature intended him to be. You don't have to put him down for anything or get control of him. He's doing what he does because I ask it of him, not because I'm telling him or making him. If you make a horse do something, which you can do, you can make a horse stop, you can make him turn, but you're going to have to make them do it every time you want it. But you get their confidence and their trust, and you teach them to respond to your body and your legs, and they do it because you ask them. Now, would you like to just move over this way a little bit? How about we go back the other way? All right, now, to do this, there are only 6 things you need to teach your horse. 6 things. You got 2 hands, 2 legs, right? Okay, I have left, right, and left, right, left, right, left, right. He can't go both ways. He'll take a step back. Now, I use my left rein, touch the left rein, and use my left leg, and the back end moves around the front end. Or vice versa. All right? Now, if I use my left leg and the right rein, we come around on the back legs. Or if I want to go sideways, I move the front end the same direction I'm telling him with the legs. What else is there? Both legs together says go forward. All right? That's like the musical scale to a musician. No matter how good they get, they practice a scale every day. All right? We practice all 6 of those basic moves every day. So the Mexican cowboy was a whole different character than the American cowboy. Now, I do not in any way whatsoever demean the American cowboy. His boss was not going to give him the time to learn the roping tricks and train the horses. This was a moneyed business. Time is money, and we get these cattle to market. And the American cowboy made an absolute science out of getting a day's work out of any horse you put him on. It didn't matter how mean it was or how well broke it. He could get a day's work out of any jug-headed piece of crowbait you handed him. Now that's an art in itself. So yes, they were 2 completely different cultures with 2 different purposes, and that's the biggest difference. And the American cowboy misunderstood so much of what he saw the Mexican doing. The American cowboy was real proud of his neck rein, back and forth. You pull him this way and you pull him this way. Well, that is not what the Mexican was doing. That's what the cowboy thought he was doing. If you pull really hard this direction, you pull the horse's nose that way, and you're telling him to go that way. Now, the Mexican was holding the reins between the thumb and the forefinger. The other fingers were used on the direct rein. And when the horse's head would come around this way, the inside rein would go loose, the outside rein laid against the neck, and the cowboy said, oh yeah. What he saw was the result of the turn, not the cause. And then they make a science out of it.